So with us here today, we have Rodolfo, who is a trustee for Freedom, a company called Freedom Studios. We have Caris, a trustee for Northern Stage Theatre, Sevlana, who's currently a trustee for Culture, and Ross, who is the Chief Operating Officer for the National Portrait Gallery. And I'm joined here with my co-host, Lucinda. And Lucinda, do you want to tell me more about who you are and your amazing role and why it matters?
Thank you so much, Mita, and delighted to be with you all today and to be collaborating with the Young Trustees movement and all of the absolutely incredible work that you do. So yes, I'm the Diversity and Talent Lead for public appointments at the Department for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport. So quickly, what are public appointments? So this is basically the process of getting people onto boards of public bodies in the UK, and absolutely anyone can apply to these roles. So for DCMS, for example, which has 45 public bodies, this ranges from the National Portrait Gallery to the Commonwealth Games Organising Committee. And I and the whole team really at DCMS are so passionate about getting more young people onto these boards. Firstly, because these public bodies must be informed by and be representative of the people that they serve. And good governance cannot exist in an echo chamber, and obviously all you young trustees will know that. And these boards would so benefit from your perspectives and your knowledge. So yeah, we really see this as untapped potential, and we're working really hard to change that.
Great, thank you so much, listener, and it's really fantastic to see such an amazing turnout to this event. So I'm sure that you're really excited about that as well. And Roz, it would be great a bit to explain a bit from you about the role at the National Portrait Gallery, and why are you particularly interested, and the organisation particularly in hearing from, where are my words, this lunchtime, I clearly need my lunch, in hearing from young people to be represented on the board.
Thank you, Mita. Thanks ever so much for the invitation to join you today. I'm just going to start with a really short history of who the National Portrait Gallery are and what we do and why it's so exciting at the moment, because I think that really sets the scene for why we're looking for this role, this Youth Culture Engagement Trustee. So in case you don't know, the National Portrait Gallery was conceived in the 1850s, and our mission is to have portraiture of people who have contributed to British culture and society. So anybody who's on our walls has a really interesting story of how they have helped to shape the nation. And our role, we look after this. It's the nation's collection, it's not ours. We look after it for the country. And part of our mission is to engage broad and diverse audiences with the collection. So it's all about sharing that and thought-provoking and helping the nation reflect with our collection. And I think it's particularly relevant at the moment because the collection and the stories within it are about what does it mean to be British? What is British culture? And I think, portraiture and self-imagery is so prevalent in culture at the moment. I hope that this, we can really create experiences that help people reflect on what they are part of and how they can be a part of the British society and how this has shaped them and how they can help shape it in return. So I think really essential and really important work at the moment. We've also just found ourselves in quite a unique situation. We've just embarked on a project to transform the gallery and the experience and the brand. So quite uniquely, we planned to close the gallery down anyway last June. So we're kind of very lucky in the sector that we'd already planned to do that. We are redoing the building, a massive renovation piece of work, but we're also completely reviewing the rehang. So it's top to bottom, it's going to be a completely different experience with a focus really on telling the story of these portraits, but also bringing in the missing narratives of more women, more broad and diverse sitters to really tell a fully rounded story of Britain since about the 1400s. So a really exciting moment. And it's an opportunity to rebuild the brand. We're reviewing everything from the visitor experience through to our commerce, through to our retail, through to the catering. So a real good time to get people on board for innovation. So we've got a couple of vacancies that have come up on our trustee board, just because people's tenancies have kind of come to an end. One is for a historian role. If we have any budding historians out there, please have a look at that job description. And the other one that I think probably most relevant here is about the Culture and Youth Engagement Trustee. Obviously, across the organisation, we have lots of young people, but we are not represented well on the trustee level at this. And we find ourselves in situations where people are constantly referring to what would young people do, what's this, what's that. And we really need somebody on the board who has current experience, evidence-based of working at scale with young people, It might not be within the sector. It could be within retail, it could be within the broader kind of entertainment sector, but about change management and mass engagement, so that when these things come up at trustee level, we've got someone who can respond with experience. That's what we're looking for.
That's really powerful. Thank you, Ros. And a lot of the time, as the Young Trustees movement, and a lot of the times when people have actually seen this vacancy at the National Portrait Gallery and have seen that you're really keen to recruit more younger trustees to this role, might say, oh, well, I thought like trusteeships was something that you had to do like senior in your career, like someone like me could possibly never do that. And what would you say to kind of that message?
I mean, you know, there are challenges on being on a board. It can be quite intimidating, but we've spoken with Lucinda, and this is a real development opportunity. You know, we really need to hear younger voices and more diverse voices on the trustee panel, and we will support people with that. So we're not going to kind of chuck people in and just let them get on with it. This is a real development opportunity. But I think also it's not just a development opportunity for the young trustee, it's a development opportunity for the board as a whole, to be more rounded, to reflect on the way that they operate. And I would hope that this role will really stimulate some new thinking about the board as a whole.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that's really powerful and links to what you were saying at the beginning about the mission for the National Portrait Gallery to be there to service for the public and the community. And a lot of the Young Trustees movement campaign is about reshifting like how we see boards and their role. And it's really exciting to see the National Portrait Gallery kind of saying that we need this now. Like what is normal generally, what you see on boards is not okay. And it's all about changing this up. So it's exciting to have all of you here as well. And it'd be great to just deep dive now into a little bit of the role specifics. As you said, you're recruiting at the minute for 2 roles, and it would be amazing to see 2 young trustees on the board, both as a historian trustee and a cultural management and youth engagement trustee.
Yeah.
For the purpose of this, we're focusing a bit more on the youth engagement trustee. Can you tell me a little bit about what it means, like the kinds of skills that you're looking for, or insights that might be particularly powerful, or maybe some top tips that you have for people who are looking to apply?
Yeah, so like I said, it doesn't necessarily need to be within the museum sector, and we do really welcome experience from outside of the sector. I think that's very important. People, you know, consider museums alongside of all the other experiences in their life, and their benchmark is not another museum down the road. It's kind of Spotify, or, you know, it's other experiences. So I would assume that the person coming in will have, I would hope, kind of cross-platform experience. So digital platforms, absolutely. But how people work with digital and the rest of their life, you know, we don't have compartmentalized lives. So I would like somebody who can speak with evidence and experience about initiatives that they've worked on, change management that they've worked on that crosses platforms. So perhaps thinking about brands that do that. It could be retail, clothing, experiences, travel, but brands that work across that, and how seamlessly we all use these different elements in our lives, and, you know, kind of think holistically about how we approach things. People who, I'm looking for someone who could really, you know, if we've got a question, they might not know the answer immediately, but they've got the right contacts and places to go to bring in the experience and the answers that we need. You know, that's very important. I think, yeah, so real hands-on, somebody who is up for a challenge, but also is really happy and confident to speak about the bigger picture. This is a real once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for us to completely reset the dial. So the gallery's reopening in 2023, but that's just the beginning. So the plans that we're putting in place, we want them to be robust in 2033. You know, we're thinking that far ahead. So somebody who understands trends for the future, not just now, but can really help us with that future thinking. Does that help?
That really does, thank you. And I think that comes back to the kinds of things where we often see young trustees when they're on boards, and they'll say, I'm so sorry, I just don't understand this, or I have a question about this, and I'm so sorry again, I really don't understand this and I have a question about this. And the response is always, this is a great question, and actually nobody has an answer, and we need to go out and search for the answer. And that's a really helpful perspective to bring.
And I always encourage people to ask those questions, because for sure, if you're sitting on a board thinking that, someone else is thinking that. You won't be the only person. And if you're thinking that and you're within our walls, then our audience are definitely thinking that. So it's really important to have the courage to ask those questions and to bring them at the table. And quite often when people ask those questions, there's a sense of relief all around because everybody else is worried about it or thinking about it.
Yeah, I think that was so well put, and I think something to just echo that. There's nothing to hear that and feel it more than hearing it firsthand from other young trustees who've gone through this process and are kind of making waves within their own organisations. And so I'd like to now bring in some of the brilliant young trustees we have on this panel now, starting with Caris. Can you tell me a little bit about the board that you're on, what you've gotten from being a trustee, and one thing that you wish that you knew before you applied?
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Caris. I am a trustee of Northern Stage Theatre in Newcastle. It's the largest regional producing theatre for the North East. And I've been a trustee there for just around a year and a half now, so not very long. I became a trustee right after I'd finished my degree, and I'd been involved in Northern Stage a lot while I was studying. So that was kind of how I came to the role. I initially saw it advertised and wasn't going to apply for it, to be honest, because I was like, trusteeship isn't my thing. Basically, just sort of, you know, kind of broadly dismissed it. And then someone I knew who worked there kind of challenged me on that and was like, well, why isn't it your thing? And I was like, I guess because I don't even know what it is. And the more I looked into it, I realised that it was actually an amazing opportunity, and I'm really glad I went for it. And then I heard about the Young Trustees movement, and here I am. So I've been an ambassador for a year for the Young Trustees movement, trying to build on the number of young trustees in the UK, well, in England and Wales. And I think through that, through that process of being a trustee and being an ambassador, the thing that I have most gained is definitely, and it sounds kind of boring, but it's really useful, is the sort of really functional skills that you gain from being on a board. You become an expert in meeting etiquette, you become an expert in knowing when to listen and when to speak and how to challenge people. I think it's really built my confidence as well, particularly as a young person who's quite early on in my career. It can be difficult to challenge people you're working with professionally as well. It can be difficult to feel like you have the status or the right to say, hang on, why are we doing this that way? Why don't we do it a different way? Is that really the easiest way to do something? And it really has just built up that confidence within me that I think I just didn't have beforehand. And that's just been, and I still kind of surprise myself when I kind of think about how much I've grown in that ability and skill over the last year and a half. It's been amazing. And I would say, I'm trying to think of something I wish I knew before I'd applied. I think probably the thing I wish I'd known before I applied, which maybe links to that, is that your inexperience is your value. And you're, like Ros said, you know, bringing a fresh perspective, bringing somebody in who can kind of, you know, just sort of shake up the board a bit and help, you know, inject some new perspectives and a different kind of life into the National Portrait Gallery. And that's something that organisations want from you as a young trustee. You don't have to assimilate into the kind of traditional idea of what it is to be a trustee and how governance works. You're there to bring something new to it. And I think that's something you really need to own and be proud of, because it's really valuable, and it's something that a trustee who's been there for 15 years just can't do because they're so in it. So really own that. Yeah, I wish someone had told me that.
Yeah, and I hope everyone applying here really does own that fact. If you're looking at a board and saying, oh, well, these people don't really look like me, then someone like you is exactly who we need to bring those diversity of perspectives. Where you see yourself not represented, you're just even more needed in that space. And another thing to pick up on is Caris could have not been here if someone hadn't given them that extra nudge to say, no, we need you. So I hope all of the people in this webinar right now really pick up on that, of how much you are needed, and give yourself I hope this webinar gives you the nudge to apply if you're feeling maybe, is this role for me? Like, it definitely is. We need your application. So it'd also be really great to hear, Sevlana, the same question to you. Where are you from? What have you gotten from from being a trustee? And what did you wish you knew before you applied?
Yes, so I'm a trustee at Culture and so we are based in London, and our work really looks at diversifying the arts and culture workforce, opening it up to more young people from underrepresented backgrounds. Over the last 7 years, we've worked with about 130 young people to really support them with training opportunities. And we've just launched a new advanced program as part of our new museum school program, which again will sort of help to train them on that sort of next level and next position in their sort of leadership journey in the arts. So we're very excited to be partnering at the University of Leicester on that. I think I've been a trustee for over a year now, and I definitely echo what Karis has said. I think it's been such a rewarding opportunity. I think it's an incredible chance for a young person to really sort of shape and advise on the future of an organization. And it's, I think, obviously a rare opportunity to have at such a young age, and it's so beneficial to really sit in a room with much more experienced people and really sort of come together to think about what's best for the organization and what the future might look like, and sort of really have the chance to input on that. I think it's also been great to learn from other people. For me, my background is very rooted in the arts. So it's been a great opportunity to learn from like my fellow trustees who have backgrounds in legal and social services. And it's really been great to sort of come together in that way and also work quite closely with the CEO. Again, something that's rare to have as a young person, to have like sort of close access and close relationship with the CEO of an organization. I think that's been sort of incredible. And I think also one thing that I think potentially I wish I knew before was having a little bit more experience or just knowledge of sort of finance. But again, that's something that you really sort of pick up quite easily once you join the board and you start getting all the board papers before the meetings and getting yourself sort of stuck into it. I think it's such a really great learning experience in governance, really, and how things should be run, what is the protocols for doing these things and all of these structures. And I think it's also been quite nice to see how the organization has even grown in the year that I've been there. So over the summer, obviously, because of everything that happened with BLM, we launched a Black Lives Matter charter for the UK heritage sector. And it was amazing to see people's responses to that, from the media to some of our allies and our partners. And yeah, I think it's such an exciting opportunity to just see that growth and see how things sort of progress and advance based on sort of the advice and the steering that you're giving. So yeah, it's definitely been such a rewarding opportunity.
Thank you so much for that, Sevlana. And like, as you said, I think when you go onto a board, you don't have to know all of these things. Yeah, it is helpful. But I remember when I first got onto my board, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to pretend like I know what I'm doing. And I was like, how do I pretend? And actually faking it till you're making it is really not a helpful thing, is knowing that you already are it. And when you're inducted on a trustee to be a role, like it is a voluntary role, and you deserve to be trained up in the role. So where there are spaces where you're like, to be an effective trustee, I need to be trained in finance, I need to be trained in all of these things. You deserve all of those things to be effective in your role. So the things that you don't need is 100% knowledge in all of the areas to be an effective trustee. You need the diversity of perspectives, the insights, the passion to bring to that role to add value. So thank you for sharing that, Sevlana. That was really powerful. And last but definitely not least, Rodolfo, could you share a little bit about your charity and what you've got on? And again, what did you wish you knew before you applied?
Thanks, Mita. So I'm Rodolfo. I'm the newly appointed Yorkshire Ambassador for the Young Trustees Movement for the upcoming year, which is really exciting. And I'm also trustee of two charities in Yorkshire, theatre company in Bradford, Freedom Studios, that works with emerging voices and young people, and East Street Arts, which is a visual arts organization that works to improve livelihoods for artists and addressing issues of social and economic decline in our towns. I mean, the thing that I guess I knew, and it's going to echo a lot of what Karis and Svetlana said, it's about that. It's about the idea that there's no single way of being a trustee, and I mean, governance has, quite rightly, lots of really formal and structured things and ways of working, but actually, it's not about having 4 meetings a year and reading some board papers and just contributing in that meeting. It's about actually, there's loads of way in which, as a trustee, you contribute to the charity year round. And actually, I really enjoyed those opportunities a lot more. I mean, if it was just 4 meetings a year, I definitely would not be doing it, because who needs more virtual meetings these days? But so that's the one thing, and that was actually told to me by a chair when I joined one of my boards, and I was like, that so totally resonates. And sorry, what was the other question, Mita? What
was the one thing that you wish you knew before you applied?
Alongside that, I guess it was that thing of being not being only one way of being a trustee. Oh, I guess I didn't answer what I took from it. And again, echoing what it's been said, that element of confidence building that you take with you into other spaces, into your professional life, into your personal life, and the opportunity to discover loads of other things. So, whilst I do have a background in the arts, so in some way the charities that I'm a trustee of are within a space that I recognize. A lot of the things that they're working on, so they're working on things like property, housing, digital. I don't necessarily have a background for that, so it's such a great opportunity to learn about things that I wouldn't really otherwise learn about in my day job. So I really enjoy that chance to getting that.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it's always so powerful to hear firsthand from the experiences of young trustees because they show that they're excellent in their roles and they're much needed. And it's just really helpful to see humans who you can maybe identify with in those roles. And what I'd really like to do now is turn over to everybody in this webinar. We have over 44 people in this webinar, and really you as an individual in this webinar will make up what this looks like. So please do bring into this space any questions that you have that might help you better understand the role, that you might have to say, that you might want help with in terms of understanding how you might be helped in your application, like what kinds of things are you looking for. We have Roz here, which is a fantastic resource. And then also, if there was anything that stopped you applying, like taking a minute to think about that so that you can really ask it in this space. And again, if there are any questions which you are like, want to ask this, but I don't want my name to be attached to it, you can send that privately to Lucinda via the chat, via a direct message. She will not reveal your name, and we'll get those questions answered. And another thing to say is, like, if you're not successful in this role, there are so many charities that need you, and just applying for this role will be a really good experience. And a lot of charities say to us, yes to diversity, but show me the trustees first, because they have vacant trustee roles. And that's because over 90% of trustee recruitment is done via word of mouth. So we're working with boards to say, broaden your search, but you can also, if this is being a trustee is something you really want, this is just the beginning of your journey if you're not successful this time, and you can go out and kind of go to other organizations and you will get that role. So I hope everyone here is going to be applying and is also going to, if not successful, go on to future ones. So now is the space over to you to ask any questions. You can do that by putting it onto the chat or asking Lucinda directly. So put your thinking caps on and over to you. Lucinda, do we have any questions?
I've had two very proactive attendees, so thank you so much. But if I can sneak a question in myself, really interesting that stat on trustees by word of mouth. I know Karis touched on her journey to becoming a trustee, but Svetlana and Rodolfo, I just wondered, how did this ever cross your path?
Yeah, so to be totally honest, my role actually was by word of mouth. So I didn't sort of formally apply in that sense. But again, I think it was quite refreshing to see that, there are still opportunities for young people to be considered that way as well. And it may not always be via an application. I think I really sort of used my background and my skills sort of in cultural communications to say that, this was something that I felt that I could bring to the board and what the board didn't currently have. So I think, for everyone sort of listening in to this session, I think, when you're applying, definitely think about how you can add value, how, looking at the organization quite carefully and seeing, okay, what can I bring? What do they need that I can sort of bring to the role and sort of offer as part of my application, I think would be some my sort of top advice.
So both of my trusteeships were via open recruitment calls and applications. So I joined Freedom Studios in 2016, and at the time I was working in arts organizations, and because I was working in communications, you had some relationship with the board, but I've always found that boards were this kind of thing at the top of the organization, sometimes mysterious. You not necessarily know who they were, what they do. You just kind of knew that leadership reported to them. So I really was quite curious, and they seem to have a huge role in setting what the organization did. So I started looking around and thinking, actually, this would be a great opportunity for me to develop professionally, to understand actually what, how strategy is set, thinking about the future. I mean, Roz talked a lot about the future of 2023. In my current boards, we're thinking exactly the same. What does the future look like 2023 all the way to 2027, which is in a way quite scary at the moment. So I started looking around, and then Freedom Studios happened to be recruiting. So the first thing that I did was actually contacting one of the artistic directors for an informal chat, because, at the time I was like a bit like Carrie's. I mean, do I go for this? What can I say? What do I do? I mean, am I too young? Do I know anything? And that was a really useful chat because, the AD really encouraged me to put in an application that would be considered. And then that happened. And in the same way, it was the same with East Street Arts. There was a call out and they said, do come and talk to us if you're interested in this. So I did. And even like 5 years on, those questions are always in your mind as you change and as you think about different boards, different organizations working in different areas, variations of those things. And I think it's a really great opportunity when you talk with charities that you're interested in to also measure, actually, how actively engaged are they in taking someone like you and that perspective on board. And so you can measure it from your side as well. So that was it. Always go and talk to them.
That's a really, really, really good point, and that just perfect segue with a fantastic question that's just come in on, this seems like a quite an intimidating environment potentially with so many impressive people around this board. Will it be a welcome environment? I'd say I'll give a brief answer before passing over to Roz, but from the DCMS side, we're so committed to making sure that that our boards are supported to be inclusive, and I certainly know from my conversations with Roz that this role will be so respected, and it will be a really empowering role because of the insights we'll be able to bring. But yeah, passing over to you, Roz.
Yeah, absolutely welcome and supported. I'm part of our senior management team, which is all the directors from the National Portrait Gallery, and the successful person will have access to all of us and support from all of us. I spend a lot of time with trustees, so it's not just about the board meetings. We also have advisory groups that trustees can join. There's a range of committees. So actually a lot of my time is spent with trustees. When it comes to, say, a board meeting, I never send trustees in cold. There is a lot of work that goes in with all the trustees beforehand to make sure they're properly briefed, that they understand that we're going to be talking about, that they understand the output that we want. So certainly from, within this team at National Portrait Gallery, you would be very supported. You would also be very supported by the board themselves, by the chair. And as Lucinda said, there is support from DCMS there. But I think also with this role, there is an opportunity to come in and to shape it a bit as well and to make it what you want to be. There's certain things that we need, but also, as I said, this is a real time of change and opportunity. So somebody can come in, and if there's something you see that's interesting, put your hand up and say, yes, I want to get more involved in the visitor experience or the ticketing solution or whatever it is. We would very much welcome that.
And also just to add in there as well, we have an amazing community of support of young trustees as well. So support within the organisation and then support within this community. We really hope you do make the most of that. Over to you, Lucinda. What is the next question?
They really are coming thick and fast. So is it possible to go into a little more detail about the digital support that MPG are seeking from their youth engagement trustee?
Digital support. So we would, I mean, as I've mentioned, you know, digital is a big part of what we do. In fact, we have by default been digital first since last February, because we closed down, and we're closed for the next 3 years. But what we would really like is people or somebody to come in with experience of working with younger groups at scale, as I've said. You know, so one of the classics we will get at trustees and other meetings, why aren't you on TikTok? Well, we could be on TikTok, but we need a strategy for that. We need to be working with the right influencers. You know, we want somebody who could come in and tell us that they've done it before and demonstrate why it's useful and why we might want to put our resources there rather than something else. So a real understanding of current trends, but as I've kind of said, with an eye on the future. So somebody who is already working on projects that are aimed 5-10 years into the future.
Fantastic, thank you, Ros. I've got a lot of questions about the am I too old? What is, or should I put my age on the application?
There's no age limit. It's illegal for us to put an age limit on. So, I mean, you could technically be 75 and apply for the youth engagement role. It's about experience of working now with youth at scale rather than the age of the applicant.
Fantastic. I've got one more on the application process. So I'll just give a brief rundown on that. So it's just a CV, a covering letter, and then a conflict of interest and a diversity monitoring form. And yep, the CV obviously straightforward, and the covering letter. All you need to do is fulfill the essential criteria. So pop the bullet points at the top of each paragraph. Leave them in if you want to. We don't mind, so long as you demonstrate that you're tackling the essential criteria. And there aren't that many for this role, so feel free to go into as much detail as you would like. Brilliant. The role is double billed as cultural management and youth engagement. What is meant by cultural engagement, and what are the needs and expectations? Roz?
Yeah, good question. So cultural engagement is fairly broad, isn't it? As I've said, we own this collection for the nation, but our mission is to get people to engage with it, whether that is online, whether that's through learning opportunities, whether that's in galleries. We have a lot of partnerships with other institutions across the country. So that's the cultural engagement side, is we've got the collection, how do we get people to engage with it? And I think we've put cultural engagement and youth management because the two are not, you know, mutually exclusive. If you do a great youth campaign, it will appeal to everybody. We all live on the same planet, you know, we're all the same species. So the two are very interlinked and not exclusive, I think. I hope that explains that a bit.
No, perfectly. And what is the time commitment for these roles? Are you flexible, for example, to childcare commitments, and how far in advance are board meetings set?
Very flexible. I mean, it will take up a degree of time. So we have 4 annual meetings, which are set, you know, a year in advance. The dates aren't an issue. You will be sent, as I'm sure the trustees here will recognise, a very large pack of board papers, probably a month ahead of that to read. As I've said, we'll have anybody from the National Portrait Gallery, myself, on hand to help you through that. But I wouldn't underestimate the amount of time you'd want to do to prepare for that. And then, as I've said, there are a number of other opportunities. So you'll be invited to join committees, advisory groups. We encourage people to do that as much as possible. So I wouldn't underestimate the amount of time. Like I said, you will get notice way in advance of when those meetings are, and we'll do everything to support you around that. And at the moment, the same as everybody else, we're doing you know, online meetings. And when we return back to work at some point, we want to keep a hybrid solution so that not everybody has to actually be in the room at the same time. So hopefully we can make that more flexible.
Brilliant, thank you. I think the question for Mita, so what support could the young trustees offer to someone that was undertaking this role?
Yeah, great question. So first of all, we have a Young Trustees kind of movement champion training. I'll just put it into the chat now. It's in your chat box. And so in this training, first of all, we give you the basis of knowledge as to like what you deserve and what inclusion looks like for you to deserve in this space. We also outline like a bit in more detail why diversity of perspectives are really important, how that matters. And I think this is really important because in just finding confidence in your voice. And then we have a digital hub, which enables you to just put out any questions that you have out there to the forum of people like Caris, Sevlana, Rodolfo, and also people who are allies as well in the movement, who are really interested in mentoring and supporting young trustees or aspiring young trustees. So any questions, you have a community of support there in the digital hub. I'll just also put that into your chat boxes. We're also in the process of developing a young trustee training program in the future, where we match and train young trustees into roles, so watch this space. And then beyond that as well, as you'll see that Rodolfo and Caris is currently our ambassadors, and Sevlana is a champion and is a champion. Where are my words today? Gosh, I really do need some lunch. They all define and co-create like what it is that the movement does. So if you are seeing some spaces where you're like, I actually need more support and space in this particular area, we will keep growing and developing as a movement based to meet the needs of those people in it. Hopefully that answers that question.
One for the fantastic speakers. If you, and I think again Caris probably touched on this, if there was one piece of advice you could give to yourself in your first week as a trustee, what would it be?
I don't know.
Svetlana, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I can jump in. I think the advice I'd give myself is don't underestimate yourself, which is similarly what Caris, has said before. I think you are definitely valued and you're needed. And I think, what we can bring as young people is, a better connection to what's happening, what's trending, what's sort of current affairs and what's sort of going on sort of in our sort of age group. And I think that's something that's really valuable. And we do sort of bring that sort of different perspective to different topics and situations. So I think, yeah, my first piece of advice is don't underestimate yourself and ask all of the questions. I think in my first meeting, I asked quite a few questions just to make sure that I understood what was expected of me and what was needed and how I can sort of add value. So yeah, that would be my 2 pieces of advice.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I've got a question on the detail now, Ros, for you, I'm afraid. Someone has asked whether you spoke about cultural engagement in detail, but there's cultural management on the job description. Is this to be inferred that cultural engagement and cultural management are kind of being spoken about under the same umbrella?
I don't know, to be honest. I haven't got the job description in front of me, but I would class them as the same thing. I wouldn't worry too much about the detail there. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Another detailed question: applications. Would it be worthwhile including business and operational change management experience in this statement, as it isn't explicitly mentioned in the role specification, as it is more strategically focused?
Absolutely. Anything you think you can bring to the table, put it down. Yeah.
Great advice. I've got a question on conflict of interest that I'm not ignoring, but I need to take that away and have a look at it for you. So the person that's asked that question, who has a fundraising role in another organisation, I think it would be absolutely fine, but I don't want to give you false assurance.
Yeah, no, I think we do have conflicts of interest. We have people who work for other organisations, or conflicts of interest are declared. And at some points in some meetings, we will ask people to leave if it's felt to be very sensitive. But again, I wouldn't let that put you off. And as I think somebody mentioned earlier, just the process of applying is really, really beneficial. I mean, I've found it myself, if you sit down and you apply for something and you put your thought into it you think about yourself and what skills you've got and how you can reflect on that. And I've applied for a number of things and didn't get them, but the process of applying for those and doing the interviews has made me better when I've gone for other things. So it's really helpful to do that.
Definitely, and I agree from a DCMS perspective, getting those applications to us, and because we've got so many interesting things coming up. I will put my email address, you can contact me, and we can just have a chat about the appointments that we do have coming up. But yeah, hopefully lots of interesting things on the horizon if you're not successful, and I know that echoes with Mita's the sessions, that there are so many exciting opportunities out there. I've got a question on the gallery, which is, besides preparing for the reopening in 2023, what do you see the role of the National Portrait Gallery while the museum is closed and the physical collection isn't accessible? And has the role of trustees over the last year particularly focused on that challenge?
So yes and yes, we're very active. Well, even, you know, the gallery itself is a part of what we do, but it's never all of what we do. So as I've mentioned, we have national partnerships across the country. We've got a big part of our transformation is an activity plan. So we're working with Brent Council, we're working with Southampton, we're working with Northamptonshire, all sorts of places where we're doing educational learning projects. And those are reciprocal to see how people engage with the collection and what we can bring back into our behaviours and programmes. We've got an international programme, so we've got some fantastic exhibitions on tour at the moment. We've got Tudors to Windsors. You can see all the royals. I think they've just finished in Japan and they're making their way to America. We've got a beautiful show about to go on tour called, I forgot the final name of it, but it's about people in love in the relationship, in the collection. So it's everything from like Henry VIII through to the Beckhams. So we've put all our love stories out there. So we're always busy. And with digital, you know, we had 6 million visits to the website last year. I don't know if you saw it, but our sponsor is Kate Middleton. And in the first lockdown, she commissioned a project called Hold Still, where people were encouraged to go and photograph their lockdown experience. We got 35,000 entries, which was incredible. So really active in the community. And some of the winners from those we put on billboards across the country. It's really demonstrating, I think, in real time, the power of portraits and how anybody can get involved and how you can reflect on your own life through that. I'm very much encouraged by the trustees on our digital activity. Yeah.
Can I just also ask a follow-up question to Lucinda? Thank you. It's a bit of a 2 questions back, so passing in the basket a bit. What does the feedback process look like if you have applied for a role and you're not successful?
You preempted a question that's just come in, so excellent timing. So the feedback process for a role is if you are shortlisted for an interview, you attend that interview and you are unsuccessful, you get a conversation with someone from GCMS, and we really go down through in detail, you know, your strengths, but any potential areas for improvement. And we're hoping to develop a program where we know we might be able to support people with those areas as well, with some learning and development activity. If you're not successful at the application stage, then we don't offer feedback as a matter of course. But if someone is particularly keen on understanding why they aren't successful, then we're always happy to provide that information. And it might just be, you know, the case that there was such a strength and depth of field in the applicants, and that your application was really exceptional in any other standards. So yeah, we always give feedback to if it's requested, and yeah, we understand how helpful it will be for forthcoming applications.
That's really powerful. Thank you, Lucinda. And I think just the power of that feedback to, if you have set yourself, I hope everyone on this webinar has set themselves a target to become a trustee for an organisation within a year, because you are just so massively needed when less than 3% of trustees are under 30, that you are in so much demand. And the fact that that feedback process is so generous, I hope people do take advantage of that. Lucinda, over back to you.
Thank you so much. And yeah, another excellent question. Unpacking youth audience targets. Is their effort focused on London, the UK, or further afield?
Is that for me?
Yes, please, Rose.
So it's holistic. Sorry, I'll start from the beginning. We have holistic records in detail of our visitors and people who we interact with, be that through you know, digital platforms, as I said, kind of international touring activity. So we have a really holistic view, and we have it detailed right down to the gallery. So we've got really good detailed information and data. And what we find is we have some really good consistent youth engagement activities. We've got a youth forum. A lot of our events are very popular with young people, which is great. We've got, you know, lates that are packed out every Friday. We have kind of themed weeks, weekends and things, which are very popular. But overall, youth and diversity tends to fluctuate depending on the exhibition programme, which is good on the one hand, because it will mean that some exhibitions bring in very young and diverse audiences, but we would like to see that consistently rise around the collection and the everyday kind of business as usual actions, rather than dependent on exhibitions where we see the lines go up and down.
Perfect, thank you. Another one for you, Ros. In 5 years' time, do you have a sense of what the gallery will look like? Will it be hybrid?
It always, I mean, that's our intention, and I think that's the intention for most museums now, talking to people. There are people who interact with our collection online, and I used to work previously at Tate, who are never going to come, and that's fine. You know, maybe because of physical ability, location, wealth. The more that we can make available online in really accessible, meaningful ways to tell the stories of the art and to let people engage, the better, and that is not going to go away. However, there is a thing about physical interaction. You know, there is a thing about seeing the artwork face to face that you can't replicate online. I think it's the same with music, isn't it? You know, you can have a brilliant playlist, but it's not quite the same as going to see that concert or hearing that person sing live. So we're trying, and I think you can see it across the sector, the digital experiences are consistently getting better and better. And also there's the point of merging digital and physical, of, you know, bringing the digital experiences through VR or AR or audio experiences into the physical spaces. So the two will consistently grow. We'll never have as many people in the gallery as we have through digital. You know, we're already on a good year, 2 million people in the gallery, 6 million people online. So there's always going to be more on digital, and that will be, you know, a big area for growth. A really interesting time, I think, for museums. Perhaps a bit late to the party in the digital arena when you look at the rest of the entertainment sector. But yeah, very exciting time.
And again, I think that just really echoes the power of diversity of perspectives of in transforming this age, which is exciting. Very
exciting. A question from someone who lives outside of London. So will they be yes, less of a priority because they live outside of London? Obviously, the National Gallery is in, National Portrait Gallery is in London, but from a DCMS perspective, no, we really want to encourage as many applications from people outside of London, that we have the full breadth of perspectives throughout the UK. And obviously, whilst the meetings are virtually right now, there will be some travel to London, but all expenses for these appointments are reimbursed. So please don't let that be a barrier either.
I wonder, Caris, as well, if you wanted to just say a few words on the power of not having London-centric spaces, because I know we've had a couple of conversations about this.
Yeah. So obviously working with like arts young trustees specifically, you do tend to find more young trustees in arts organisations in London. And often if I'm on panels and stuff, I can sometimes be the only person who's not from London. And it is actually really, it's a really important and really powerful thing, because you're able to talk about how, I think, you know, there is in the arts sometimes a feeling of certain areas of the country. I know I experience it with them talking to people in the Northeast, feeling like a resentment towards arts and culture, feeling like regional areas are forgotten. And I think that that's something that's really important to be able to bring to a national gallery. You know, it's supposed to serve the UK and beyond with the power of digital. And so you shouldn't feel like you know, because you're not local to London, you're in any way less effective at being a good young trustee there. I would also add that it's quite normal, which I didn't know before I became a trustee, for trustees to sit on boards in areas where they don't live throughout the country. So someone who's on my board is also on the board for the Globe Theatre in London. She lives in Newcastle, and it's common for people to travel for board meetings. So that's not uncommon anywhere. But yeah, the power of like it, I really want to push for more young trustees outside of London. It's specifically within the arts, just because that's where I'm involved, because it's really powerful, and like regional arts and culture are so amazing, and we need to be shouting about them more and championing them on a national scale. So yeah, definitely apply if you're outside of London and in, but you know, no matter what.
Amazing, thank you, Caris. That is yeah, just what we wanted to hear. So we don't have any questions now, so obviously two more minutes or so if you have any more burning thoughts. What will the interview process be? Thank you. Oh yes, they're all coming in now. So yeah, what will the interview process be? So the once applications are submitted, they're reviewed, and then we invite candidates to interview. There is an assessment panel, which there is always an independent panel member there, and then there is someone from the gallery, and who will be the chair, and there is someone from the department as well. So small interview panel, very friendly interview panel. And after that, you will be asked some questions relating to your experience and your CV and everything that's been outlined in the job description. Absolutely no surprises at all. And then after that interview, which they are taking place virtually at the moment, by the way, and isn't likely to change in time for this process. So after that, there will be a little while the feedback is digested, and because there are 2 roles, it might take slightly longer, but we'll do everything we can to keep you in the loop as best we can. If you don't hear, people can get slightly discouraged by the appointments process. If they don't hear anything for a while, it does take longer than the conventional job, but rest assured, behind the scenes, you know, we're like a swan, where our legs are flapping under the water, and we're doing everything we can to expedite the process for you. So in the comments is that, yeah, that's I'm based in North Wales, so it could actually be that being outside London can be beneficial. Definitely. Of course, North Wales is beautiful, so I'm sure it's beneficial all the time.
That's great, thank you. And we are actually now out of time, and it would be great to thank you so much for all of your insights and your great questions. Again, diversity of perspectives, bringing in great questions to this conversation. You've created what this conversation is. Lucinda has kindly put her email into the chat, and please do chat to her if you would like to hear about any other public appointments, and she's fantastic and very friendly, so exciting resource for you there. It'd be great just to close with just one kind of sentence. The panel doesn't know I'm about to do this, just to kind of close, and would be there one reflection that they'd like to leave you with. I'm going to start with Roz, and then go Caris, Sevillana, and then Rudolfo, and then Lucinda.
It might be more than one sentence, but it's just great to see so many people here, and please apply for this, and very good luck with your application for this and any other trustee roles.
I would just say you don't lose anything from at least applying. If nothing else, you'll have a good chunk of like text that you can copy and paste for your future trustee applications that I'm sure you're going to make. Like, just apply. There's literally you've got nothing to lose. So just give it a go.
Mine would be believe in yourself, be confident, and just think about how you can add value in your application.
And I would recommend you to look beyond where you live at the moment. So look nationally, look in your region, you know, immediate region, far away. But yeah, don't limit yourself to just the place where you live.
Definitely, all great advice, and I'm going to quote Caris again and say, own it. Own, you know, your youth and your perspective is what is so invaluable to these organisations. And to look at all the public appointments out there, there are some amazing vacancies. A lot of them are RDCMS, but they're across government. So really have a look. Maybe it's not right for you now, but have it as an aspiration throughout your career.
Thank you so much. Caris, was there just one more thing you wanted to say?
You might be about to do it, Mita, but I was just going to once again promo the hub, signing up to the Young Trustees movement, getting involved, signing up to the hub. We put loads of opportunities on there. Mita's posted a load of useful links, but it's a fantastic community and it's well worth joining. And you don't have to be a young trustee to join. You can be a prospective one. You can want to become one. So yeah.
Thank you so much for that. And on that note, thank you so much to all of our speakers and our panelists who've been so generous with their insights and their time. And thank you so much for coming in your lunch hour on yet another Zoom meeting to find out more. I can't echo enough, when less than 3% of trustees are under 30, you are so desperately needed. And please do, Caris mentioned at the beginning, like she needed a bit of a nudge to apply. I hope this is the nudge to get you to apply for this. And if you're not successful for this, other roles, because you are so desperately needed. And now I am going to abruptly end this meeting. So with that, if you, I just wanted to say thank you again and pretend that this meeting was not abruptly ended. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
We really appreciated you coming.